Welcome to the Maternal Well podcast, a space for all things related to maternal health, pregnancy, and beyond. I'm your host, Stephanie Terrio. I am a labor and delivery nurse and a mother to 3 beautiful boys. Each week, we dive into inspiring stories and expert insights to remind us of the power that you hold in childbirth and motherhood. We're here to explore the joys, the challenges, and the complexities of maternal health. Every mother's journey is unique, and every story deserves to be told. Please note that this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with your healthcare provider for medical guidance that is tailored to your specific needs. Are you ready? Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Maternal Well podcast. Today's guest, Oriana Teeple, is a mother of 2 children. Her 8-year-old Antonio, Tony for short, and a 3-year-old named Sophia. Currently, she's a stay-at-home mom and a student at Cornell University. She is halfway through her program called Nutrition and Healthy Living. She was born in Poland, where she met her husband. It is because of his work that she had her 2 children in 2 different countries in Europe, her oldest in the UK and her youngest in Germany. Currently, the US is her home. Oriana's husband serves in the US Army, and she follows him wherever they send him. I asked Oriana what brings her joy, and she responded, traveling, sewing, thrifting, and going on hikes. I'm excited for you all to hear her story. Welcome, Oriana.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm so glad we finally got our calendars together and we were able to connect and sit down and record an episode.
I'm happy. I'm happy you didn't give up on me, even though I said the calendars were busy. Busy moms life.
Busy moms. Yes, that's what it's all about. One of my favorite ways to start the podcast or start the episode is with a love story. So if you could share a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you live, and then how you met your husband.
Oh, that's a really interesting story. Okay, I was born and raised in Poland, and that's also where I met my husband. I traveled a little bit around Europe before meeting him, but the story is really funny. At the time, I was working as an English teacher in a kindergarten, and one of my friends, also English teacher, she was not dating yet, but talking to one of those dating apps with a guy who turns out to be American soldier stationed in Poland, maybe 40 minutes from the place where we were both living and working. And because the troops were new in Poland, they had this rule that they cannot leave the military post for like about a month. That's the reason why she didn't meet him yet. And finally, when the time came, my friend came to me and told me that they have another rule that for safety and accountability, he cannot leave the post by himself. He needs to have, another buddy, another soldier with him at all times. So he would bring in a friend, and if I don't mind to be her friend, kind of a federal thing. And to be honest, I didn't want to. At that time, I really wasn't into dating, but I just thought, she's a good friend. I'm just going to do a good thing for her. She also told me, well, maybe you should just go out and, talk English, not with kids anymore, but with actual adults. Take it as a little bit of a learning experience too. So I agree. I asked her, of course, for a photograph of that friend of her date. Of course, they didn't have it. She never provided. So the only thing I was hoping for was he's not going to be a jerk. So we went for this double on my side and on my husband's side, blind date into a little local sushi restaurant. And it was fun. We had really lots of fun. So it started there. And my husband's role was pretty similar. He also had no idea about me. He'd never seen my picture before meeting me. Also was doing a good thing for a friend. And here we are years later. We just started dating there when we were in Poland. Then I just told my husband all around the world because we were stationed in in Europe and now in US. So that's the story.
How about the other couple? Did they make it too?
No, they didn't make it, unfortunately. We like to say that we made it because we had absolutely no expectations and we were like pretty, chill into it, that it's going to be what it's going to be. And because we learn about each other, in real life, not on the internet, we didn't have that amount of just texting like the other couple.
Yeah, I can see that. Just like going into it, like you said, no expectations, going with the flow, and then love blossoms.
Mm-hmm.
So you have two kids. You have an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old. And you mentioned that you and your husband have traveled all around as he's in the military. So share with us a little bit about your experience of where you were when you had your first child, during your pregnancy, and then your delivery.
So I was pregnant and delivered Tony, so our 8-year-old son, in London. We were in UK at the time. I have two different experiences with two of the kids, but both pregnancies went really well. Like, I felt great. During my first one, I worked almost until the due date. I stopped like maybe 2 weeks before. So I felt really great. The pregnancy I supported by midwives only. I really wanted to have the whole experience as natural as possible. And UK back then, I hope it's the same now too. I had few options. Wanted to have a birth in a hospital and have like doctor's help. So kind of, I would say, the most common around the world. And another one is to have midwives help you and have a birth in a birthing center run by midwives only. And the third one was the home birth that I considered, but because it was my first pregnancy, I was a little bit scared that just in case something will go wrong, it will take some time to be transported to the hospital. So I went with the midwife and a birth center option. The birth center was based on a first floor of a hospital. I was confident that just in case that, something goes wrong, I can always be transported, just a floor up. Like, you can't be any closer.
So you had the midwives for your pregnancy. Did the midwives come to your house? Did you go to the birth center for your prenatal appointments?
I was going to the birth center, and then I was a little bit surprised that they don't schedule the ultrasounds of the baby as often as I knew it's happening back in my home country in Poland, because I think there are only like 2 during the pregnancy. First one around 12 weeks to confirm your pregnancy, and another one, I think it's around 20 weeks to, check on the well-being of the baby when they do the full body scan. So there's not one where they will tell you about the baby gender. We scheduled that separately in like a little private clinic. So I think that was one of the big surprises from like what I might expected before, because how I knew it is. I'm in Poland, but all the appointments were with the midwives, and I had to go to their birth center. They did come to the house for like postpartum care a few times, so that was really nice.
Okay. So you get to later in the pregnancy, 38, 39, 40 weeks. Did you go into labor? Did you have an induction? Talk us through that.
I went into the labor. I woke up in the middle of the night with what I thought was a dream that a balloon popped, but that was my water.
How many weeks were you when you broke your water?
I was 39 weeks.
39, okay.
39 and a couple days, I believe. Yeah, so that's really close. I expected that can happen anytime, but they didn't have really any Braxton Hicks, anything that would tell me like, oh yeah, it's coming. Just because of the calendar. Okay, the date is coming. I was expecting it. So my water broke at home. I called the birth center. They asked me to stay at home for as long as possible until the contractions are pretty close. I want to say that anything between 2 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
And that went smooth. I just I stay in bed during that time, try to rest. That was maybe 2-3 hours, and then early in the morning we drove to the hospital that had that birth center on the side where I was admitted. They still asked me to walk around the corridors for a little bit because I wasn't ready to deliver the baby yet.
When you were at the birth center and then your water was broken and they had you walk around, how were they monitoring the baby?
Oh, so they were not monitoring the baby at the time.
Okay.
They did like an initial well-being test, and then they told me how dilated I was. I can't remember what was, but definitely it wasn't the time, to push yet. I got already a room. I really wanted to deliver in the water, and that's what I did. I got a room. They didn't start the water yet. But they, just show me around there and just ask to walk around because it is not time. And they did not check on baby for that hour. I remember that I was in a lot of pain, and it made me feel sick. But let's not forget that was a birth center where you can't get any of the big drugs, which I initially never wanted to take. I wanted the birth to be natural. And then maybe after an hour of walking around, we came back to the birth room. They start putting warm water into this huge bath. I was jumping a little bit on yoga ball. The nice thing was that the room had dim light. So that was really relaxing. If you can say that it's relaxing during that. But that definitely helped that, there were, I think no windows, or they were covered. It was really dim light. So it's like in casino, you don't know what time is it and how much time you spend. And then I did agree to have students during the birth, because I'm I need to help. Someone needs to say yes. So, they have the experience. It was only, so it was a midwife and then another lady student. And she was super helpful, very warm. I remember her keep asking me if I want a toast. They offer a toast in UK. Oh. I remember that I was in so much pain, thinking, oh my God, this is ridiculous. I don't want any toast. I just want someone to take out that baby out of me.
I know you said there's no big meds in the birth center, but did you use the gas, nitrous oxide, or any IV medication?
No, the gas was there. It was available, but I keep telling them no, maybe a little more. I leave it for the worst pain that's gonna come, and I end up not using it because I kept postponing it.
So how did you know what time to get into the tub?
Oh, so I went to the tub at the moment when it was ready, when they fill it up, because I knew it will help pain. It also slows down the whole process a little bit, but I knew it will help. And I remember now it is a funny memory, because I remember thinking before and talking to my husband, okay, I'll be in the bath, so I should get a bikini top, so I feel comfortable there.
Yeah.
You don't think about it. When you're giving a birth to the baby, you really couldn't care any less. If anyone's worried about it, just my advice is please don't. You really don't care. You just want to be comfy, and you're there, with the father of the baby, and you have those caring midwives, and you don't care. Once the bath was ready, I wanted to say jump in. I went in. It did help. Another surprise for me was something I've never thought about, how do they check on the baby once you're in the bath? So one of the things that the midwives do is they take a mirror and they just put it into the water where the baby is in a canal. That was really interesting because, I could see the baby too. When he was really close, also it happened when I felt oh my goodness, I'm here forever. I really want the baby out. Are we really getting any closer, or are you just telling me this? So I keep going. And my son was really close because the midwife told me you just need maybe 2 more pushes. I can see the head, and she told me you maybe can't see it, but you can't touch him. So she helped me do that. So I touched a hairy head of my baby.
How long did you push for, actively pushing?
I went to the bath. That's what they told me, because you lose track of time at 6, and he was born at 11. So the whole birth took 4 hours, but I'm not sure about the push, the active push time.
When he was delivered, did you catch him coming out, or did the midwife catch him and pass him to you?
I did catch him, and then they just wipe the face a little bit, because that's also something that you decide about in your birth plan, if you want the baby to be fully washed after the birth, or do you want the baby as it is on your chest. And that's what I went for. So they just make sure that he can breathe, and he was right on my chest. And then I started breastfeeding because they do wait for a little bit before delivering or ask you to deliver placenta. And for that, talking about the drugs, I did get a shot. I have no idea what was it, but it was something that helps to deliver the placenta faster and safer. That was also something that like we decided before it was in a birth plan before the baby.
Yeah, and most likely it was Pitocin that they give postpartum to help with the delivering the placenta and prevent any kind of bleeding. Did you have any lacerations?
Yes, and they did tell me that it looks like I am going to tear, right? I think that's the right word. And that's what happened. But again, birth center, midwives, everything happened naturally, for which I am grateful because I hear those horror stories again. So for me, it was all natural, but I did tear and had to be sewn afterwards.
And the midwives did that for you. They sewed you back up?
Yes.
Anything to help with the pain?
I can't remember right now, but I don't think it could be anything other than ibuprofen. But before that, there was one more thing that was also surprising that you don't think about, and there's this beautiful birthing room that we just talked about, and then opposite to it, they have your regular hospital birthing center room where you have a bed for mom, a bed for the baby, your private bathroom. And that's it. So what happens after the natural birth, and I told you I feed the baby. Then after that they give us like really long time. They check on the baby. They let the dad stay with them with the baby. Check all the stats. Then they have the baby ready, and dad can walk with the baby back to the room. And they ask me, Mom, after all that I've just done, to walk too. And that I was just so surprised. And I walked like half bended. I mean, I'm glad that I did it, but it just felt so weird because you lose, the baby weight, the placenta, all the water and everything. It was just so weird to have that, kind of empty belly. Yeah, but like that's what it is. They're like really supernatural. They don't push you in a wheelchair there. It was a few meters, but it was still. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm able to do that. Okay. And now after having experience of the second birth, I really love that they just leave you there in peace. So you can rest. They do come and check on the baby, not very often, I wanted to say. And with the paperwork, they try to do, everything at once. And then someone, comes when they deliver you your food. And that's it. You rest. Again, it's like very dimmed lights. Lots of private space because it was just us, no other family there. And the beautiful thing about it, especially now living in US, is the fact that it was all covered by the insurance. We didn't have to do anything extra, and that was the standard there. I know that in different countries, usually a private room is sometimes something extra you can pay and get that, but that's not guaranteed. While in that birth center, that was the standard. Every room was for a single family.
Did your room have a bed for your husband?
It had a little sofa, but the bed for the mom was huge. It definitely wasn't like a standard bed for one person.
And then after 24 hours, you go home, and then you mentioned that the midwife comes and checks on you and the baby at home. So I'm just curious about when they come, like how many weeks after you delivered the baby they come to see you, and then how many times?
Well, that was 8 years ago. I believe they came a few times, anything between 3 to 5, and they do maybe like 2 days after you're back. So you're like 2 days back home, then maybe a week after that, and then again weekly. And I do believe that there was also an option to ask for more of those visits, but then it also flips into you can come and go to the birth center or any clinic to see them. But they definitely do come a few times. They do check on your well-being, on how you're healing. They do check on the baby. So that was really nice and helpful.
We paused this episode for a quick message from our sponsor. At Maternal Wealth, we aim to ensure that you have access to the best and the most appropriate care. That's why we created a maternal healthcare provider database. Maternal health providers can easily create profiles to promote their services and business, helping to increase access for those seeking their care. This is a one-of-a-kind database that offers a new and exciting way for women to search for and find maternal health providers near them and tailored to their specific needs. Profiles feature badges that highlight various services such as TOLAC-friendly practices, all-female practices, LGBTQAI+ inclusivity, language options, access to vaginal breech services, and more. I'm curious to hear about baby number 2. So this was a different experience for you and in a different country, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Totally different experience. Baby number 2, my now 3-year-old, was born in Germany during crazy COVID times. Very different experience. Just starting from the pregnancy, as I mentioned before, I felt really great. Maybe not the first 3 months. I was very nauseous, and that gave me a little tip like, oh my goodness, that has to be a girl because I feel so sick. Yes, but other than that, I just felt great. I was like really active. I didn't work at that time because we were stationed in Germany because of my husband's job, and my German, I had that at school, but it's very like survivor level. I know how to go to the store or to a restaurant and talk a little bit with German neighbors there, but definitely that wasn't enough to get a job. But I still stay active. A lot of our neighbors, some military families, were expecting the baby, so we were just going for like hikes and walks. It was really beautiful place where we were stationed. Germany is very walking, hiking, being active, and outdoorsy friendly. So that was a really good time. But the care was different. There was no option for midwife. I mean, we do have a friend who's American, and she's a midwife. But that if we would like her services, that would have to come out of the pocket, and it would be like home a visit.
What city were you located in, or what area of Germany?
Bavaria, that's the region. And it was a little town, little village called Hohenburg, and the military post is also tiny, and it's called Hohenfels. The closest big city that hopefully listeners know will be Nuremberg or Munich. That's like 3 hours away. But so the care was in the clinic that were run by doctors.
Was it a military clinic or was it a German clinic?
No, it was a German clinic. The post where my husband worked, that was close to our home because we live off post, because the post was, the military post was just so small that there wasn't even enough space for the families. But that gave us great experience just living in Germany and, just soaking into the culture, doing shopping in the little stores there and, going for those walks and hikes. But yes, the clinic was German because there was a military American clinic on post, but it had like really limited resources. That would be the place, where you go when you get a cold or to get your like flu shots, but that's about it. So I believe military had those contracts with good amount of German clinics. We did our little research, ask around, and I just chose one. The really nice thing was that everyone spoke English there. We always try with our German, but that goes into like some point, and then we had to switch to English. So that was really nice that the doctor and the nurses, they had a really great English, and any paperwork that I will get, it would be translated to. Or they would give a little guide of like okay, when you get this test done, or you're gonna get a paper about this and that, it gives like a little translation guide, like that's what it means. So even if like a lab will send, I don't know, my blood work back, I would know what is it about. So that part was really great. The care was different because, yes, it was run by doctors, not by the midwives. I think the main difference between, I think, Germany and US, because in Poland will be similar as in Germany, was that when you're really early in pregnancy, when you get in an ultrasound to check on the baby, I don't know the right words for it, but Europe, they still use the wand that they put inside of your body. Because I had
okay, like a vaginal
yeah.
ultrasound.
So I think that was a surprise for some of my friends. I knew that from, just because we do it the same way in Poland. And I definitely didn't have that in UK either. The hard thing was that I was pregnant in 2020 and then I gave birth in 2021. So, crazy times. It was the restricted region in Germany about the restrictions. So my husband couldn't really accompany me there on those appointments. He was waiting in a car in the parking lot. He couldn't even enter the clinic. Which, we weren't happy about it, especially because, we shared the same household. I get it. They didn't want crowds there, but we're from the same home. So then at some point, because you know how it was, those restrictions were on and off, depending on all the different data. There was one appointment that he could come, but it was also I spent in the clinic a little bit of time doing some paperwork, talking with the doctor, and then he's like, okay, tell your husband in 5 minutes we will have the ultrasound of a baby, and if he wants to come, tell him to come. So
he was able to see one ultrasound.
Yes. The rest, it was me recording on the phone or, just bringing those pictures, the prints, lots of pictures, at least that.
Was it one OB that you saw throughout the pregnancy and then that was the OB for your delivery, or was it more like a group setting where you saw a bunch of different OBs and then depending on who was on at the hospital would be your OB?
So it's a mix of those because I did have a group of OBs at the clinic, which was a surprise for me because I knew again from my Polish friends, that in Poland, I think it's pretty similar to what it is in US, that you choose your OB, you go into that one doctor, and hopefully he'll be on a shift in the hospital that you choose when you are in labor and when you're about to deliver the baby. In Germany, you can see one or many doctors at the same clinic. I did see few. I didn't like all of them to the same level. So then I request either to see someone more or don't see a specific person. But I knew that none of them will see me in the delivery room. Because to do that, I believe I would have to go to the clinic that's in the hospital that I want to deliver. But that was okay, maybe because it was my second baby. So I just wanted to go to the clinic of a choice and then go to the hospital of my choice. And unfortunately, the doctors were not the same. I was aware that it will be a stranger.
With this pregnancy, did you go into labor also?
Yes, and that was prematurely, which we didn't expect because, as I mentioned before, the pregnancy was going well. The only thing mentioned to me was I have placenta previa, and that might affect the way I deliver the baby because I wanted a natural birth again. Also in the water in a hospital, but they offer that. Yeah, they mentioned the option of C-section in case the placenta won't move. And then during my visits, my appointments, it was moving. It was either, covering the cervix area or moving. So the version kept changing. Every appointment, I heard something different. I just spoke with my husband, okay, we have open mind about it. We just want the baby to be healthy. And then at 32 weeks, I came home from being out with another friend who was pregnant. We were just actually shopping for the babies and shopping for clothes for the babies. I was taking pictures because again, I was away from the families. I always like to take pictures of what I found and send it to my family back home. And then I felt that I pee myself a little bit. So I just went to the bathroom and then I saw that I'm bleeding and really, really huge claw just came out of me. So I knew something's wrong. I just called my husband who was in a different room. I said that something's wrong and I'm bleeding. I think we have to go to the hospital. At that time we had a 4-year-old already, so he just called the neighbor and dropped him off there. And we were again, in a little village in the middle of nowhere. The nearest hospital was half an hour away. So he made a decision that it's faster if we just go now, and he's just gonna drive me there than to call the ambulance. So that's what we did. And I was admitted right away. I was admitted, I was checked, I start feeling small contractions. I did receive all the medication to stop it, to stop the contractions so the baby won't come. Then I believe one of the next thing was getting a shot for baby lungs to to develop better, faster in case she has to be delivered. So a very scary time.
Can you remind me, how many weeks were you? You were 32 weeks?
Yeah, 32 weeks. So I knew this is early. At that point, I was just hoping that the baby can wait 3 more days, because I believe that was the time that that shot for her lungs needs to fully work, so she can be ready to breathe in the outside world. And then again, in a hospital, lots of midwives, nurses, the whole staff spoke English, which was just really, really great. And the hospital is also ready for the American insurance. So, at least that part, all the paperwork or the official part, at least we didn't have to really be worried about this. They just take your military ID and they deal with the paperwork. They have also, it's like a patient advocate, someone who speaks fluent German and English and stands in between both to help understand the process. And my husband was with me. One of the first things as well that they do was a COVID test on both of us. But he was able to stay with me all the time while I was in that ER room.
So you said that you initially saw the clot at home. You felt the trickle and there was a clot. And then your husband drove you to the hospital. You got to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Did you continue to bleed in the commute and when you were at the hospital, or was it kind of like the one clot and then it subsided and then you went from there?
No, I continued to bleed. Before leaving the house, I put one of those postpartum pads, and I think I also took one of those pads to put on the seat because I was bleeding. It was our first. I think that was our first time at that hospital, because the hospital visit wasn't like the one where you check the hospital, the birth room and all things like this. That was scheduled for later in the pregnancy. So he just dropped me off. So I still had to go out from the car. And I remember that I was wearing a dress and just a waterfall of blood came out. But someone, at the door helped me.
Okay.
And to get me inside. Oh my goodness, the call was just so big. Yeah. So we were both really scared.
What did they decide to do? When you got to the hospital, they gave you the medicine to kind of stop the contractions, to help with the bleeding. Did they recommend to proceed with delivery, or were they trying to hold off a little bit? What was their recommendation?
So the recommendation was to try to hold off with delivering the baby, just because it was still early, and that shot for the lungs to at least, of course, if possible, to wait at least those 3 days, but to admit me in a hospital and just observe to see if I will bleed again, and how happy the baby in the belly. So that's what was happening. So after that initial care, when they established the whole plan and stopped the contraction, and they admitted me into the ward, and that's the time when my husband had to leave. So I did stay, and I stayed in total for a month, I think. And they never had the answer to when and if I could go home. I was on a strict bed rest because I kept spotting every 2-3 days. And they told me, you could go home probably if, for 3 days you're not spotting, there's no contraction. They can start those pills that help me to not have the contraction. But that never happened. I had to stay on that medication, and the bleeding was still happening. But they were monitoring baby a few times a day.
Okay.
So they were really on top of that.
talk us through the delivery. You had the previa, you had the bleeding. Did you end up having a vaginal delivery?
No, I really hoped for it, even though that after that emergency and staying in the hospital, I was kind of thinking that C-section is the only option. But after some checkups, they told me like, hey, if everything goes well and you go into a term, your placenta moved for the moment. So looks like you can still have the natural birth that you wanted. But unfortunately, at 35 weeks, I was bleeding more. It was late in the evening, and I thought that I'm bleeding more than just the spotting that was like every now and then. So I called the nurse, and then they rolled me into a room and check on the baby, say that baby's still happy, but looks like they won't be able to stop that bleeding, and they think it is time that they're gonna it's time for emergency C-section. So I just asked if I have time to call my husband, and he said yes. I'm so very thankful for all our friends who are always wherever we are stationed, because friends are the family you choose, especially if you're so far away from family. Because it was another friend who was pregnant too that came and stayed, because it was, I think, 10 p.m. in the evening when I called my husband and told him like, hey, in half an hour the baby will be delivered, like please come ASAP. So our son was asleep, so he called a neighbor and our friend Chelsea, if you hear it, I love you and I'm forever grateful. And she came and just stayed with him so my husband could experience the birth of our baby. He drove. When they came, they changed him really quickly. They, rolled both of us to the room. I was just so happy that he was able to be there, that he made it, and that, we were at 35 weeks, not 32. But I also remember shaking like a jello before. Right before it. So they had a problem. What's the word I'm looking for? They had a problem too.
For the epidural?
Oh, yes, thank you. Because I had to stay close. I remember my husband was already waiting for me, like, to be on the table. He was all sterile there and ready. And I was hugging a midwife to don't just stop shaking. And I told her, like, hey, I'm excited to have the baby. Pretty smooth. Again, everyone spoke English, so that was great. And it's like they knew, because I am a little bit OCD person, and they talk me through it. My husband was also telling me what's happening, because I hate the fact that, you can't see it, which is for the best. But yes, one of the doctors, the anesthesiologist, and then my husband were walking me through of like what is going on. So I felt like, okay, I am in control still.
Yeah, that helps. I like that because it's hard, when you can't see and there's so much going on.
And the funny part was that they had a radio on, so now the songs that were there are on like our Spotify playlist. So that was really nice. So it went pretty smooth, but then when it's a regular C-section, hopefully most of the times they give you the baby right after to so you can do cheek to cheek, face to face. I didn't have a chance to do that because afterwards my husband told me that when the baby out, she was all blue. So they take her right away to get her help and to check on her vitals, and invited my husband there. So he was the first one to do skin to skin to feed her.
Okay.
So they had their little time together, and I believe that's the reason why she's such a daddy girl now. Because I was so impatient. I was feeling good afterwards, but in Germany they asked to wait 2 hours for me to be, to feel better, to be fully aware, to make sure that I'm okay before seeing the baby. So that's a big difference if you think that the first birth was, me catching the baby and putting the baby on my chest and breastfeeding. But she's all good. Everything was fine, and we went home after 2 days. I think that's pretty fast, thinking that she was a preemie.
Yeah, absolutely. So she was delivered at 35 weeks? 35, yeah. How was the recovery for you? Did you have anyone who came to your home, or did you go to the hospital for your postpartum care? What did that look like?
No, I didn't have anyone coming to home. I saw a really big difference between the natural birth and the C-section in a hospital, because there was another mom there, and on the next day she was up and running while I was in so much pain. It was really hard to move even from the bed. And I remember thinking, like, I want to be like that lady from the next bed. It definitely took more time. They had a great team while I was in a hospital. They sent lactation consultant. So they just sent that to everyone. But once she saw that we don't have a problem with that, she, just left, saying, like, hey, if you need my help, just call. But I believe it's just experience, because it was a second baby, so I managed that fine. The nurse helping with, like, to move you from the birth, start walking around, help you with a first shower and everything. And then before going home, they sent a technician that does, I have no idea what that machine was, but it's a massage for all your, like, abdominal part of the body that's supposed to help you with healing. So
was that done at the hospital?
Yeah, that was at the hospital. But then nobody comes home, so I was just going back to the clinic that I was visiting while pregnant.
I want to go back to the machine that does the massage on your belly, because I haven't heard of that before. What did it look like?
It was like it looked like a record player, rectangular machine, and I believe that technician has one hand on, like, a metal stick, I want to say, that's connected to it, and one hand in a glove on your belly.
Okay. And then it was massaging your belly, not near your incision, just your belly.
Yes, just the belly.
I'm going to have to look that up. I'm curious.
I'm sorry, I couldn't describe it anymore. It just into my mind, like, hey, they actually come to massage.
Was it, like, uncomfortable or painful or at all, or nice?
It was nice, but I couldn't feel anything. I feel like maybe it had some current, going through it when I think about it, but it was definitely not painful.
Yeah.
The other difference was that the nurses and doctors were very attentive, and I just want them to leave me in peace. But they kept coming and checking. Again, I shared the room, so they were checking, on 2 moms and 2 babies. So that was a lot. I was tired of that. I know they were just doing their job.
How about your husband? Was he able to take some time off from work?
Yes. He was able to take 21 days. And that was from the time when we were, like, back home. So that's nice that it counted from that day. Again, it was so cold, so he was able to visit, but had to, like, schedule that. My son couldn't come. They didn't allow kids at all, even postpartum. But thankfully that we were there only 2 days. After 2 days, we left, so he didn't wait a long time for his baby sister. Again, I'm thankful for friends who stay with him. One of them was that friend that's a midwife that lived, like, 5 minutes away from the hospital. And another one is my husband's friend, Ian. Thank you. You're the best uncle. Who also stayed with him while my husband, because think about it, I was in a hospital for a month. Our house was half an hour drive from it, and then my husband had to juggle work and taking care of our kiddo too. So friends help, and again, he couldn't visit once. They did it once on Mother's Day, and my husband just took my son and silently moved around the hospital and brought him to my room. It was just me there at the time. I didn't have any roommate. So it was really nice. We had, like, a lunch together there, and one of them did, but unfortunately the hospital staff didn't like that.
They weren't too happy.
No, they weren't happy. But at least I got to see my son, and I think after that, my husband dropped him off at my parents for some time too.
It was worth it, right?
Yes, it was worth it. And it was really nice that he got those 21 days. I think now it's up to 3 months.
Oh, okay.
That changed at his work, which is just great.
What advice would you give to women who find themselves in an unfamiliar country and doesn't have family around, somebody who was in a similar situation to you where, there was a complication? And what advice would you give them if they find themselves in a similar situation?
I think, first of all, to have open mind, because my experience shows, I think, pretty well that birth can go either way, all those different ways. And you just have to have open mind, because you can plan it to the smallest detail. And we like to say that you can have a birth plan, but baby has your own birth plan too. So just have an open mind that it can go totally different than whatever plan you have in your head, and educate yourself. So if you're in a different country, different place, that the whole procedure, how they care about the pregnant woman, how the birth experience could be, and the postpartum, just educate yourself, ask questions. I always like to join Facebook groups of the place where I live. This way you can get connected to the people that live in the same place and make sure their experience, their advices, they can share resources so you know what to expect, what you can ask for, what is other people's experience, what did they recommend. And then if you're away from the family, friends are the people that you have to count on. So just say build your little village, because you're gonna need them. Don't be afraid to ask, because quite often there might be in a similar situation too, also away from the family. So they definitely understand. That's important, because yes, you and your partner are the family for the newborn baby, but it's nice to have a little help, even if it's just to vent about your experience or your feeling.
Have you thought about potentially, is there a baby number 3 coming up? Are you completely satisfied with the 2 that you have?
No, we're done. No, I think we're done. We're not thinking about more kiddos. Now we are both focused really on like raising the ones that we have, giving them our best, and just improve ourselves.
Enjoying life.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me and sharing your experiences and being open and vulnerable so that other women can learn and heal and grow.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I always love to share my stories, and I love to hear it from other women. And I love what you're doing in the podcast, because I think there are so many either taboos or things that we don't talk about the whole pregnancy, giving birth, postpartum experience. So the more we share, the better prepared the next mom.
Hey there, amazing listeners. If you love what we do and want to see our podcast grow, we need your help. By making a donation, you'll be supporting us and bringing you even more great content. I truly believe creating this space for women all across the globe to share their story will allow us to collectively heal, grow, and become more empowered in the space that we deserve to be. Motherhood, womanhood, and however that looks and feels for each and every one of us. Every contribution, big or small, will make a huge difference. If you can, head over to support us today. There's a link in the bio to support the podcast. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for being a part of this journey. Thank you for listening. Be sure to check out our social media. All links are provided in the episode description. We're excited to have you here. Please give us a follow. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show, reach out to us via email at info@maternalwealth.com. And remember, stay healthy, embrace your power, and you got this.